Hello everyone, Diogo for Gear Space here. Today we have a very interesting plugin to show you. This is the Solid State Logic SSL X-Gate. This is a brand new gate, brand new features, brand new algorithms. I'll show you around the plugin, show you all the features, then we'll move on to some audio examples. Okay, from left to right. First, we have an input knob here, so you can gain stage accordingly from -24 to +24. We also have some nice input metering here in a waveform display, so let's get some action going. We have this handy traffic light system here, which is pretty intuitive. So if it's closed, no signal, red light. If it's open, and in action, you have the yellow and green lights here with this nice waveform display that gives you a visual indication, which helps to set things up. Okay, so down here we have a sidechain mid-side option. Turn it to the left and only the mid portion of the stereo signal will trigger the gate. Turn it to the right and only the side portion of the stereo signal will trigger the gate. Set it to 12 o'clock and the entire stereo signal will trigger the gate. Then we have some filters, low cut and high cut. You can engage them here and set their values, or you can click on this nice little bar up here and set the range. We also have a external sidechain option, which you can turn it on here. You can also listen to the sidechain. We have two detection modes, RMS and peak. We have a gate listen function, so you can listen to what is being gated. Then we have the threshold option. This threshold is not your usual threshold, as it allows you to set where exactly the gate will open and where exactly it closes. So you can click here to determine the open. Let's get that nice waveform going on again. And you can also set it where it's closed. You can also click here in the middle to set the range. And here on the side, you can determine the maximum gain reduction. So you can limit how much gain reduction is going on, which is super handy. Then we have the envelope settings, attack, hold, and release, and a knee option for the expansion mode. We also have a ducking mode. We'll get to this later on in the video. We also have a look ahead option. This is a zero latency plugin, but if you turn look ahead on, it'll add a bit of latency. So just keep that in mind. Look ahead is nice for some tricky audio situations. So the plugin will look ahead, as the name says, and will scan the future signal, let's put it this way, so the gate can be well prepared once the signal hits the deck. We also have a gate mid-side option here for the output, which works the same way as the sidechain. So if you turn it to the left, only the mid portion of the stereo signal will be gated. Turn it to the right and only the side portion of the stereo signal will be gated. Set it to 12 o'clock and the entire stereo signal will be gated. We also have a mix knob so you can balance dry and wet. We also have an output trim with output meters. And down here we have a handy tooltip option. So if you hover the mouse on each signal, you get a nice pop-up balloon with an explanation. Okay, so let's go to some audio examples so you can listen to the X-Gate in action. Okay, so our first example has to be drum mic bleed, which is perhaps the most common use for gates. So let's have a listen at this drum part here. So very basic, we only have a kick drum, a snare, and the floor tom. So let's start with the kick. So lots of bleed coming from that floor tom. So let's turn the gate on. So it's reduced quite drastically here. So let's go over the settings that I have. First is the sidechain filter. I have it set to 60 hertz and around 200 here. It's quite narrow because I don't want anything from the mids or the highs triggering the gate. We only need like the meat of the kick drum. I have the open and close threshold going on here, and also some gain reduction limiting. Detection set to peak, look ahead set to medium, because later in the song we have some more detailed parts, so we need to take that into account as well. So let's have a listen once again. Let's use the mix knob here. So you can even listen to some very, very faint singing in the back, probably many instruments and vocals and everything recorded live in the same room, so there's a lot of bleed going on here. And that's all gone now. Okay, so let's go to the snare now. First with the X-Gate bypassed. So some bleed from the kick drum and also from that floor tom. You can see that I cranked the input gain quite a lot here to have a better detection. And this time around I'm using the expander mode because I think the envelope reaction was better. With the gate I was getting kind of a clicky sound. Not so bad actually, but I think this is a bit more natural, especially on the decay. This is the top mic, by the way, so let's have a listen at the bottom mic, which is maybe one of the most problematic mics that you can have on a drum set in terms of bleed. So a bit of everything there, bit of kick drum, floor tom. So let's enable the gate. We can try to suppress more, but I think it hurts the resulting signal. We can compensate here. Not too bad. Same reasoning as the kick drum. I have narrowed down the range here. This time around only on the mids and highs because that's what we want. Okay, so let's have a listen first without the gates. Now let's enable the gates. Much cleaner sound. Sometimes that's what you want, sometimes not. Sometimes you can play around with the bleed. You always can reach for that mix knob to balance things out. And that's about it. Okay, so now for our second example, I'm gonna do some vocal cleanup. Once again, it's a mic bleed situation, but this time it's the headphone probably bleeding into the singer's microphone. This is also an useful trick if you're cleaning up dialogue, voiceover. So let's have a listen first. We can see on the waveform here.
Come and go.
So there's a bit of an interference here coming from the headphone probably. And once again here.
I hear
pretty bad.
Then he come around again. Then he come around again. I hear.
And also at the end of it there. So let's enable the X-Gate. I have it set around 180 hertz here for the sidechain because there's nothing here to trigger the gate. We only want the vocals to trigger the gate. I have look ahead set to long because, you know, these things can get a bit unpredictable. So look ahead helps the gate to prepare itself. So let's have a listen. Dead quiet.
Come and go. Come and go, you low profile.
Let's skip to that mid portion.
I hear. Then it comes.
We even got a glimpse of the brief in there. So maybe you want that, maybe you don't want that. So play around with the open and close threshold. Maybe try the expander mode with some gain reduction limiting here. So tweak it to taste. This will really depend on your source material. So let's have a listen once again to this mid portion in the ending.
I hear. Then he come around again. Then he come around again. I hear.
So very smooth action, doesn't interfere with the ending of each part, which is nice. But once again, keep that in mind. Maybe try max look ahead if your material is very unpredictable or uneven. So play around with those settings and you get good results. Alright, so for our next example, I'm gonna show you a trick which was super popular in the 80s, the gated reverb trick. You don't need to sound like the 80s to do this. It's an useful trick anyway for many situations. So first, let's have a listen without the gates on, because I also have a gate on the snare drum, again to counter mic bleed. Okay. Lots of reverb, big reverb. Just a little bit of bleed coming from the kick drum. So let's sort that out. Haven't completely eliminated the kick because it was interfering with the sustain of the snare with the tail. So I left it there. So now let's gate that reverb. We can tailor the tail here a bit with the hold and release. There you go. Cool trick. Some think it's a bit dated, but anyway, there you go. There you have it. Moving on to the next trick. Another drum trick, actually. I'm gonna add a sub-frequency to the kick drum and a little noise burst to the snare. So I have a signal generator here, tuned to 60 hertz for the kick, a sine wave, and for the snare I have some white noise. So let's listen to these drums without the enhancements. Nice, but it can get better. So let's add the subtone. So what happens here is that the signal generator is pumping out that sine wave, so let's bypass. Okay, so what the gate is doing here is the gate is being triggered by the sidechain, so I have the external sidechain here, so every time the kick drum hits, the sine wave goes through. So let's have a listen. Let's mute it. So a lot more weight. You can tune this to taste. You don't need to use 60 Hertz, of course. You can use other values. It's usually around 50 or 60. And play with your attack release settings to dial in exactly what you want. Maybe you have too many hits, so you need faster timings than I have here. And also mix accordingly. All right, so let's check out the snare now. Same principle. Let's change the gate here. Okay. So this is the noise. I'm gonna just tune this down so you can listen to it. Okay. Let's mute it. You can also fine-tune the noise sound. With an EQ, I have the SSL X-Gate here, so let's solo. Noise is broadband, so you can basically set this EQ to whatever fits your song. It's another nice trick to have, another nice use for the X-Gate. Okay, so last example, I have a boring synth pad here, which I'm gonna try to spice up with X-Gate. I also have some drums going, so I'm taking the drums and using it as the sidechain. I'm gonna also show you the mid-side functionality and the ducking. So let's start with the boring pad without the X-Gate first. So yeah, nothing special about it. Now let's enable X-Gate. Now let's try the mid side. I'm only going to gate the mid portion now. So nice little glitchy effect going. Now let's go over to the side. So if you set this up in dual mono, you can get some nice effects, nice stereo effects. So let's now check out the ducking. And by the way, the feed for the sidechain is coming before the fader. So I pull the fader down for the drums and the sidechain still going on. Okay, so now to the ducking. Keep in mind that when you're using ducking, close and open will be inverted. So let's have a listen. Let's bypass that other one. Okay. So a nice reverse style of effect. Same trick, let's only duck the mid and now the sides. And now the entire signal. Cool trick, you can get quite creative with X-Gate. Okay, so that wraps it up for us. X-Gate is now available as a AAX audio unit or VST plugin for Mac and Windows. You can get it right now at SSL's website. I'll leave you a link down below. Price is $129 and it's also part of the SSL Complete subscription, which gives you pretty much everything that you need to set up a full-blown SSL studio in your DAW, including the legendary channel strips, bus compressors, EQs, reverbs, delays, and other hardware like diffusion, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that's it. Thank you all for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.